Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another wonderful week of Radio Melee, and we've got a wonderful guest, somebody who I had the good pleasure of really commentating and spectating his breakout performance at what was that tournament called? The Big House 10, of course, 2 weeks ago. Soonsay, you sound like you said like you felt like you won the whole event because it was such a magical experience for you. Well, now it feels magical to have you on the show. Welcome to Radio Melee, and how are you doing, my friend?
Thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, it feels good. I don't know. It's been a bit of a whirlwind couple of weeks. I wasn't expecting anything from the event, and then obviously here we are. I don't know. A little while to end up turning out the way it did. So,
and you had you also got the. I guess we should just tell people because I'm sure a lot of people don't keep track of this sort of thing. So let's just say it at the start of the episode. You are a lock for Summit.
Hell yeah, I am. Let's go. I am
very nice.
Yeah, over the moon to be going. I've said that like 1,000 times, but I mean, PP might even remember a couple Summit iterations ago. No, it was actually pre-COVID. I was trying to, poke him and see if he might want to come as a coach and try and get some incentive going. This was 3 years ago, and yeah, it's nice to be able to just do it, the sickest way I could have imagined, which is qualifying, just playing Melee. I didn't have to eat an onion, didn't have to draw dicks on my face. I got to just go because I've played good Melee, so love it.
I think the dream is always to get in qualifying, because then you really feel it, or invited. I mean, invited I guess is even better, because then you really know you've made it. But qualifying, I think, is got to be the most satisfying way.
Well, people talk about deserving it, right? And it's like I don't know if you can ever argue that you deserve it on like a popularity contest, but if I win my way in or anybody wins their way in, it feels like you deserve it. So it's cool.
100%. Yeah, it's you from this weekend, as well as Professor Pro, or I should say you from last weekend, and Professor Pro from this weekend, who's another Fox player that I've watched for years and years, who I've really enjoyed. So I'm. For me, especially as a Fox player, as a Fox enthusiast, the summit is shaping up to be a fun one. And to all y'all in the chat, of course, as we always do on the program, all you got to do is type !Radio Melee, hop into the server, and this week we've got Zeke, everyone's favorite Golden Guardian, who is going to be selecting questions from those that you ask. I know there's a lot to talk about this weekend. It's not just obviously going to be about the Big House, because we also had DreamHack Rotterdam just happen, with Leffen dropping a set to Triff, but then winning the whole event, and then posting some kind of picture of a basketball player with a shark tornado kind of thing. That was interesting. So you could ask about that. You could talk. We could talk about AMSA winning another tournament at the off season, which is kind of ridiculous. That dude's on a tear. Is he going to get ranked number one? If he wins one more event, he might. That's weird. Never thought I'd live in that timeline, but here we are. So there's a lot to talk about, obviously, in Melee. But we're going to talk about whatever you want to talk about, because it's your show. All you got to do is type in !Radio Melee.
Yeah, for sure. And to follow up real quick on Soonsay reaching out to me a few years ago, it was not an easy decision to say no to that, because I happen to like the way Soonsay plays a good bit. I find his movement to be quite intentional, and it's difficult to control Fox in the way he does that. And so it's very pleasing to watch, and I'm glad we're getting to see him more, and he gets the respect he deserves for the work he's putting in.
That was not my like attempt to put you in the hot seat. I promise.
No, it's fine.
That was something I thought was really funny. It was like my desperate attempt to just try and win that popularity contest. So sure. I appreciate it.
No, it's all good. But I wanted to just make it known that I am happy to have you here and to celebrate you on the show today. And so anyway, first question for you as a celebration. You broke your hand raging. What's up with that, man?
Oh God. Okay. I told this story not too long ago on, I think it was King of the Cube, right? I think I mentioned this to you. I mentioned it recently the other day on Alex 19's, because he started a podcast thing. And I think it was because like I got into the Smash Summit 10 like online thing. Like the only other time I've had anything to do with Summit actually was when they did it online. And I feel like a lot of players coming out of Summit, and like not to like, make excuses or anything, but I think a lot of players coming out of Summit feel like they've like achieved this new level. They are like on this whole new level. They're successful. They've like entered that upper echelon, and I think it gives you a false sense of like how good you are. And I think I kind of suffered from the same thing. I was like pretty ego driven, pretty frustrated when I wasn't getting the results thought I was supposed to be getting. I was like everything. So I ran into my demon of all demons just one too many times, which is Bobby Big Balls. And I was just so mad at myself. I was so frustrated. I just kept getting hit by stuff. And I was like, not to get hit by that. And it was like, I think it was like another heartbreaker game 5. And I just was, I mean, I think everybody's been there, at least frustrated, but I was so pissed off. I punched my chair like 5 times. And then just one of those times I was like, oh, my pinky didn't come back. It just like was stuck in the down position. And I was like, oh, okay, I am officially not only the stupidest guy ever, but I'm also having a DQ from losers. So that's great. Yeah.
What event was this again? What was the
dude? It was like a TMT. It's not like I lost it. That should tell you like what all about like the headspace I was in. I was not in a good headspace. Just like I don't know. It took a lot of like reinventing the wheel a bit. I don't think my hands have been holding me back the last like year and a half or two. It's been like all mental and just not getting too frustrated when I feel like I deserve something. So yeah.
Right.
And it's been a few years since that. I just want to clarify for everyone. You've had time to process that experience and recalibrate and work on the Falco matchup.
It's been like a year and a half, and like I don't know. It was just like I said, a point in time. I think all the stars were aligning for me to think I was hot shit. And then just get knocked and have to deal with that and be like, oh, I'm losing it. And everybody's like, oh, you can't be losing to Bobby. And I'm like, he's good. Why is everybody saying that? Like, why am I? Oh my God. It was the most frustrating thing ever because I would get clowned on, but then he'd be winning these events. And I was like, okay, fuck all of you. I'm fine. But that
is even surprising for me because I feel like this was if my timeline memory serves me right, this was like when Bobby was beating HBox, and because they were playing every week.
Bobby was beating a lot of really good people, but it was just, I don't know. You can get clowned for anything, I think, in any fighting game, especially.
Right.
So
you can
take their chances. So
you really can. And I guess with Bobby, there was always this element of like, well, Bobby could also lose to anybody, so shouldn't he be losing to you? Shouldn't you be beating him? It's like,
he totally recalibrated my thoughts about him because at the time I was like, I thought to myself, I also shouldn't be losing to Bobby, and I had this whole ego driven, like I don't know, I was kind of an asshole about it, not outwardly, but inwardly, I just felt like I wasn't that nice about it, and So then eventually I just kind of hit a point and I was like, you know what? No, Bobby's a great player. And like, you can say whatever you want about him, but he enters a ton of stuff. He's a grinder to the bone. So I have he works harder than I do for sure. If there's a person that deserves it more, it would be him. So I don't know. Yeah. I have like all the respect in the world for him now. So he's definitely a good catalyst in being better there.
And there's something about this whole era because this was like 2020. This was like mid-pandemic, and I think for a lot of people were just in kind of, to varying degrees, but toxic headspaces, right? I think it was really easy to be in your own head, maybe not even about Melee, but about a lot of things, because this was probably when social interaction was at the, at its absolute least. COVID was just wrecking everybody, and so you had when you take that and you're in your room all day, and Slippy's come out and we're just playing online nonstop. I think it's so easy. For people to develop those sorts of mentalities. So to me, it makes perfect sense.
I think online gaming spaces are like a breeding ground for that as it is. And when you pair in like online gaming spaces is all you've got. You can't even go to like a local and just have a good time with some people well. It's like, oh, that is a breeding ground for being frustrated at any game, even like Melee. So yeah,
I feel that. Hardcore. But you rose out of that, and then of course now we've got you. Big House was really. I guess it just sort of came out of nowhere. But we talked, and we kind of mentioned this a little bit on Twitter and stuff. But we did have that talk at GOML, and I don't even remember really what that spun out of. But I guess we were at the bar with Mango, and so for context for PP here, me and Soonsay were at the bar with Mango, and there were a couple other people there. Actually, Eric Hansen was there from Chess Pro, for some reason, and so there's just a couple of us. And we just started talking about, and I kind of poured my heart out to Soonsay, and I told him, like, I want you to be great because I feel like you can be great. And like what have your expectations? What I want to ask you is like, what have your, because it's you made it sound a second ago, you made it sound like for Big House, you didn't have a ton of expectations going to the event. You didn't have some sense of like, oh, I'm gonna mess people up, I'm gonna do really good. You were just kind of winging it. And what did that feel like?
I don't know. I like you hear like other good players talk about the sensation of like when they play well. There's lots of like, sports psychology stuff that people talk about when like peak performance is like kind of achieved by limiting all of those like external judgments and factors, whether they're good or bad. Like whether I went into an event feeling like I was going to lose, or if I was like super just torqued and ready to win, I had neither of those things, and it was kind of by accident. I really wish I could tell you like, yeah, I sat atop the mountaintop ever since the GOML talk, and I just grinded tech skill and I meditated. none of those things happened. I think I walked in. I didn't want to go to Detroit that weekend. I was literally talking to my family that day, and I was like, I do not want to get on that plane. I do not want to be in Detroit for a weekend. I was like, I was so not in the headspace to even like play well at Big House. And then out of nowhere, I just started to realize that like maybe it's because I had like no expectations, and it's probably a big part of it. But because I walked in with no expectations, I think I was also able to like, even if I was only playing like a 7 or an 8 out of 10, the negative thoughts that might normally creep in when you're thinking about expectations and wanting to do well, that would take you from like a 7 down to like a 5 just because you're frustrated you're not playing out of 10. It's like none of that happened. And like in all my sets, I was able to bring like a consistently great level of Melee. Even if it wasn't perfect, I was like totally okay with things not going quite as well. Maybe I missed some stuff, maybe I didn't, and managed to just kind of claw it back into a favorable situation repeatedly. And I was like, holy shit, I just keep winning sets. I was like, oh, the Leffen thing happened, and I was like, okay, he's kind of rusty. I could tell we were playing. Maybe it is just a fluke. And then I like beat Johnny, and I was like, okay, like holy shit, it's still going on. And then I played this week on Sunday, and I was like, I'm still like really just playing pretty good, and it's still just happening. So I didn't feel like I had some miracle happened though, which was cool. I've been saying this to people because they'd asked about it. There was no there was no like miracle. I didn't feel like I woke up and just like my hands had suddenly been blessed by the heavens. Right. I feel like I was just like very relaxed the whole time and played really well as a result. I don't know how else to describe it.
Okay, I actually want to ask about this because I think something that's very fascinating is, okay, for the Leffen set and the Johnny set, and this is what really worried me, honestly, for both of you. And when I say both of you, I mean you and Pipsqueak. Because those who were, scoping out the bracket might remember that there was a chunk where the projected seeds didn't make it because Plup dropped out because he was sick, and of course you beat Leffen. And so getting into winner's side of top 8, on one side I think it was like Mango and Zane or whatever, but then on the other side it was you and Pipsqueak. And you had a whole night to think about that, because I think that match was like, that was your first match, right? I think Sunday morning, because Sunday morning was top 24, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. Yeah, Sunday top 24, and then top 8 happened a few hours later.
So you must have, or maybe you just avoided it. Maybe you pulled an axe, but I kind of want you to talk about it a little bit. Like, did you realize, like, holy shit, this is a great bracket?
I feel like such a I feel like a loser, because like every time I like go, no, seriously, because like every time I go on like a run or I do well, I'm just craving positive reinforcement. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I don't go read Twitter. I don't go read Reddit. People talking about the upsets. People, I'm not that cool that I just turn my phone off and go eat dinner and go to bed. I've never been that guy. Every time I've done well, I've wanted to just be like, oh, I hope people thought that was cool. I've always thought that. And I wish I was cooler than that, but that is the case with me. And so I immediately was reading. I was on Twitter. I was on Reddit. I was everywhere. I was like, hey, what do people think of this? And the first thing I got, and this was what pissed me off so much, is everybody was just complaining about the Leffen seed, as if I didn't just like beat Johnny after, as if And so I was like, okay, the big argument I had is I was like, if you see Leffen 4th or 7th, like, the Leffen I got that day could have lost either way. It wasn't like a seeding problem that caused Leffen to lose. It felt like people in hindsight were like, oh yeah, of course he lost to Soonsay. And I'm like, no, nobody called that happening. Like, come on.
That's crazy.
And so I did check it out. I wasn't really thinking that much about top 8. I was just like, I'm good at the Fox Ditto. I'm playing pretty good. I have a lot of experience versus box players, and like Zuppy specifically. Box.
Zuppy.
Yeah. So I was chill. I was like, I also have a hilariously good record versus European players, just from a couple like the times that I've been over there for work. And I played them.
you won. You won.
It was
Oh
Nang.
my god, what turn was that?
it was Nang. It was a UK
Nang.
event, and I love all those guys, so I'm not trying to rub it in. They're amazing scene. But
Yeah.
I was really confident because I was like, I don't know if it's just like a European thing. Like I had beaten like Prof and Sechi and Frenzy. And then after the Leffen win, I was like, Pipsqueak's got to be shaking in his boots right now. I'm just mucking European players right now. And so on Sunday, I was feeling good is kind of my point. And I was kind of having a laugh about it. Even if I lost, I was like, you know what? It's still an incredible performance. And I think I backed up the Leffen win with like another good win.
Yeah.
So all my expectations were exceeded because the bar was set so low that I think I was just calm the whole time. It was cool. It was really, really weird sensation for sure.
Jeez, yeah, that's insane. Actually, I mean, if we get a chance to talk about it, I might want to ask you more about you mentioned you have a lot of experience against box foxes, and I almost wonder if you have any thoughts there from a gameplay perspective. Like, do they play differently?
Yeah, so they do. I've got a theory on this, and it's like and it might not be this way in a few years, but this is like my meta call for now, is that I think box players with the advantages they have sort of play to those advantages a little too obviously. Like they're hitting instant nairs out of shield like the second you're even near them. They're getting stuff out of shield super clean. And so in a way, it sort of becomes this weird backwards meta crutch where like because they're so good at like a few subset things, I feel like I'm always more on guard to watch out for them because I know they're going to go for them. And so it's like easier to sort of, I wouldn't say I'm like conditioning that sort of thing, but you just can play in a certain way that gets them to go for those options a lot. And you just can always know they're coming. So I'm like, yeah, on paper, they're doing the most amazing frame perfect stuff, comes out super fast. But then on the next level, I'm like, well, if I know they're going to do it, it doesn't matter how good it was, you know? So that's how I feel about it right now. Maybe in a few years when their play styles really become more cemented and they know not to just abuse what like the box can give them, that might not be such a thing. But for the time being, I've noticed with most box players, I'm like, they'll tend to go for shine out of shields more often. So I'm going to play around that spacing instead of something else because they know they can hit it. And like, there's just this weird execution meta where I feel like I know what they're going to do because I know what they're confident in doing. So it's just weird. It's totally weird. On paper, it's an amazing controller, gives you a lot of amazing advantages. But in practice, I think there's just a lot of exploitable player-based habits that emerge from using the box.
Yeah, that is super interesting. I mean, it makes sense. That does make sense. People will tend to default to, what they feel gives them success. And I think you get a lot of positive feedback when you hit some technique really cleanly or something. So that does make sense to me. But yeah. PB, did you have anything you wanted to dig into before we tackle OMS's community voice from last week, as well as bring some callers on?
Yeah, I wanted to rebound from my first question and ask something a little nicer, and that is, Soonsay, you, like I alluded to earlier. I mean, I'm really enjoy watching you move and control Fox in a lot of ways, and I think regardless of your expectations for yourself, I think at this event, you really showed that you'd still put a lot of work in, regardless of how you felt about it or didn't feel about it or any of that. And so you don't have to, divulge a whole lot, but I think it'd be kind of cool for people that are, maybe watching, fledgling Soonsay fans out there. What's something that you can tell them that's maybe different about the way you approach the game, think about it, practice it, that maybe they could use or at least find interesting?
I mean, it's been weird. Even on Alex 19's thing, we ended up talking a lot about like mental health and just the impact being in a good headspace has on like your ability to play melee and maybe not overcomplicate too much stuff.
Right.
If I had a recommendation to anybody, or if I had to like distill it down to like a couple droplets of truth, or my version of what I think has gone down, is take the breaks that like you don't want to take. There'd be times where it feels like you just got to really put your nose to the grindstone and just, I don't know. I think you can push yourself too hard at anything. And oftentimes when you come back to things, the payoff, because you fall back in love with that thing, whether it could be anything, but I mean, as far as melee is concerned, I think just like taking breaks is so slept on as far as, even if you come back to the game and like objectively you're playing worse, maybe your execution's worse, or maybe your decisions aren't quite as fast, or however you want to try and put it there, your enjoyment of the game is usually renewed. And I think that leads to a lot more growth and like long term. Sometimes it helps you detach, I guess, from like the ego part of the game that you maybe don't realize that snuck up on you. At least that's what happened for me, like I was talking about earlier. So take breaks and also take some time to reflect. And like even talking to a friend of mine recently who's sort of been getting back into the game, his tag's Quaff. He's like super hidden boss from our region. He's honestly the GOAT. But even talking to him, he's been getting really frustrated. And I was like, you just have to like learn to remove the concept of deserving things in the game and even out of the game. The idea of deserving is like what takes away all enjoyment and contributes to like 100% of at least my frustration. Whenever I feel like I deserve something, if it goes my way, then sure. But if it doesn't go my way, it's like the most brutal stake through the heart. So yeah, I don't know. That's all I can say is like, yeah, sure. Practice your tech skill. Spend all the time you want in the world, sitting in your little den and just in the darkness grinding melee tech skill. But I don't think anything will help you more than like what's up going on in your head. So if you're not in a good headspace, I wouldn't expect to do much.
It's funny because the more you feel like you deserve stuff, whatever it is, but also if you don't get it, it sucks. But even if you do get what you deserve, it takes the joy out of it, doesn't it? Because you kind of are now, you feel like you deserve an invite to Summit and they invite you. You're not happy about it the way that somebody like you is, right? You're like, yeah, of course, this is what I deserve. So it takes the joy out. And you don't want to be like that either.
I wish it didn't happen this way, but like right after I lost to AMSA and found out I got into Summit, I was like, oh, I got into Summit, sick. I was so excited about that. And I was like, even if I lose to Zane, even if I get 5th place, like this has been such an amazing tournament. Cool. Then about 40 minutes later, I was watching Mango play AMSA in Grands. And I was like, man, I was playing really good versus AMSA. Like that could have been me up there. And I was like, holy shit. Oh, how did this bar within 45 minutes and yeah, on one hand, that's like the hunger of being a competitor and always wanting something more. But on the other hand, I just had to like try and, remind myself. I was like, no, shut up. You got 5th at like a really big tournament. Like don't suddenly sell that in and be like, nope, I wanted 3rd, I wanted 2nd, I wanted 1st. Like no, 5th was awesome. Summit's amazing. That's exactly what I set out for when I even started playing Melee and like seeing the Summit events. I just was like, that's it's just the second you achieve that thing, you're on to the next thing and it's never enough. So that's like a life thing, but trying to temper that expectation as well. Like in the moment I was like, holy shit, it's creeping up on me again. So yeah, that's another weird sensation that came along with having such a great weekend is I was like, oh, I'm greedy. It could have been even better, could have been even better.
That is how that goes. Yeah, that definitely is how that goes. I feel like you hear you definitely everyone I think has been there. And it really does happen, a lot in tournaments when you don't temper it at least. But yeah, really funny to hear. Well, let's take a look at the community voice from last week. We had AMSA on celebrating the big win at Big House, and AMSA's just been on a tear, but he had like more than one question.
Yeah.
If I remember, it was kind of like a combo question. He was basically asking about up and coming Yoshi mains and
where Yoshi is on the tier list.
Where Yoshi is on the tier list. That's right. So I think we've got kind of some combination answers here. Muck Manor saying, I've thought of Yoshi as high tier for years now. I don't think he can realistically be called mid tier anymore after this victory. In my mind, the tier list goes S is Marth, Fox, Puff, Falco, Sheik. A+ is Peach, Falcon, and Ices, and you've got Pika and Yoshi at A. Also, the next big Yoshi to watch is Whiskers, baby. Let's go NYC. Woo! I kind of agree with that. I feel like, Whiskers is actually one of the Yoshis I haven't fought myself, but I feel like when I do watch Whiskers, I'm the most impressed. And I feel like Whiskers wins relative to how often Whiskers actually goes to like events, like especially traveling. Like Whiskers is really good results for the fact that I feel like Whiskers doesn't go anywhere. So that's pretty promising. If Whiskers does start going to like majors, I think that could be that could be a player. Let's say if you're a betting man, that's someone to put your money on. And we got OTG saying, I think Yoshi's at the top of B tier with potentially A tier around Peach. Okay, But first, I'd like to see more Yoshi's placing high and Amsa to show the sauce versus Sheik and Falcon. Just prove the character can go even or close to it with the best reps of those characters. The second best Yoshi is Moki, aka Moshi Moki Nodders. Yeah, the funny thing is, I mean, this was written 5 days ago. And at the time, I guess Amsa did have that win over Wizzy from 2 weeks ago at LTC.
Mm-hmm.
But Amsa did get that win again. Has now beaten Wizzy 2 times in a row. And it's funny because I think before LTC, Amsa had only beaten Wizzy once lifetime. And I think it was like years and years and years and years and years ago at some summit in like pools or something, I think. So, I will say that the interesting thing about Amsa to me right now is Amsa looks a lot better at the historically bad matchups. Peach is going to be an interesting one. I think Amsa, like Laud is someone we haven't seen go to a ton of majors. Obviously, Laud feels pretty busy, but that's someone I would want to see if Amsa could get around and some of the Sheik players as well. Obviously, Amsa's pretty consistent against Jmook right now, but Plup, for example, has been someone who's been tough for Amsa. So I'm really interested to see if Amsa can shore up some of these tougher, I wouldn't say, not impossible by any stretch of the imagination, but I agree. I would love to see what Amsa is going to bring to the table in those matchups. Oh, did Amsa beat Lot at Pound? Oh, it was Polish that I was thinking of. Okay, well, whatever. Point being,
I feel like the goalpost kind of moved on Amsa though a little bit. Maybe just because I was watching the Big House, it's like HBox was the demon, and everybody's like, he is the number one blocker for Amsa winning stuff. It felt like, and then all of a sudden he's gotten some HBox win under his belt, and they're like, well, okay, now he's got to beat all the Sheiks and Wizzies to really prove that Yoshi can do it, like even in the hardest brackets. And I'm like, I don't know. I think that I think he, especially with the Big House win, I think he's kind of set the stage to be like, no, it's not a character thing anymore. Like the onus is on me to just play well that day. It's not like, I don't know. I kind of view that character differently. Not even with the Big House win or not, he's sort of just been getting to a point where he's proving what the character can do beyond a shadow of a doubt. And what the character can do doesn't just automatically lose to like Falcon or Sheik, he's done it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think you're right. Like, because we almost are conditioned to talk that way about Amsa because Amsa plays this weirder character, which is Yoshi. Mm-hmm. And so we feel like when Amsa loses, like Amsa could lose because he's just not playing as hot as he normally does or whatever on a certain day. And then we say, oh, tough matchup. I guess it's a tough matchup. But whereas like, if Mango loses or something or Zane loses, it's just like, oh, they made mistakes. But really Yoshi can just get the job done. And it's often less of a, oh, the matchup sucks, blah, blah, blah problem. And it's really, we should giving Amsa that level of respect. And we should be really giving Yoshi that level of respect. Where this character is pretty cracked.
Yeah, I just don't see it being like, I don't know, with the goalposts, like I said, Melee, everybody gets better at executing every year. You're seeing crazier and crazier stuff from like your average Twitter poster. And it's like, if that doesn't tell you about where the game's going as far as people's ability to execute in game and Yoshi's big barrier, I don't know for sure. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's been years of like, oh, Yoshi's bad because of X, Y, and Z. But I thought his big thing was that like the execution barrier to parrying and shutting out moves and like being able to play that way consistently and being like so frame tight all the time is like not feasible. But that sounds a lot to me like, I don't know, was it Mewtwo King saying Fox isn't feasible at a top level years and years ago because his execution's too high? It's like, I don't know. I just, Amsa seems like he's got the execution. So it's like, if that was the barrier, then there's no real reason to blame any like tier lists here. There's nothing that I can see that's stopping it from happening and him continuing to beat every character on the basis that his execution's amazing and he is the better player, Makes
a lot of sense, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, not to like say that has no merit. I'm not saying, it's just, I think he's definitely proven that it's not so like, people were saying it's Yoshi as a character, like he simply doesn't have the tools. And I'm like, no, nobody's been able to play him in a freaky ass way that he can just like totally destroy people. And now someone actually is doing it. So like we're finally at that point. So I'm not saying I'll see Yoshi dominating the meta because of that major execution barrier that Amsa's managed to like, come to grips with and overcome in a lot of ways. But I don't know. I don't know if I see it that way as like necessarily he has to beat the Falcons and the Sheiks to really prove it. I think he already has more than proven it in other matchups that are more difficult on paper.
think you're right. Yeah, that is I think that's a pretty like let's say a refreshing take because I think I agree by and large, and I also don't think I've heard too many people really express that like that. So I like that. But speaking of takes, time to get our callers on. We got a couple callers. We got a couple questions in that submit topics here channel. I think we might have some of the repeats if you drop by last week. But our first caller is gonna be Tarzan XXX04. Where are you calling in from, and what do you got for us today, Tarzan?
Hey, so I'm from Northern California.
Oh, awesome. Me too.
Sweet, sweet. So first thing I want to do before I ask my question is I want to say a quick thank you to you, Toph and PP. Toph, you were actually the reason that I became a collegiate Smash Brothers coach and commentator for my college. And PP, you were the inspiration for me to like play competitive Smash Brothers because I've been watching since about 2005 and really wasn't sure that I wanted to get into it until college, and just wanted to say thank you for that first.
Oh, thank you.
That's super cool to hear. Which college, by the way?
It was at Grand Canyon University. I did it for 2 years. So shout outs to Grand Canyon University, Arizona. Great Smash Brothers Ultimate community out there. They had a little bit of a Melee community, but not quite as much. But my question for you guys is, with this like new generation of players, especially with like Ultimate players who come down to play Melee, do you see that there could be an opportunity for more low tiers to kind of come into the light with like dual maining as they do in Smash Ultimate? Or do you think that there's going to be some mix up in competition, or do you think they're kind of just going to stay with high tiers?
Interesting. And this is specifically about like low tier because you know, in terms of dual maining, obviously you can dual main top tiers, but you're more wondering in terms of like low tier dual mains. Yeah,
because like in specifics with like, you know, Smash Brothers Ultimate, some like people main really high tier characters, and there's somebody a little bit lower in the high tiers, but some people will actually like main, you know, a high tier character and have a low tier character just to mix it up and kind of throw people off their game.
Kind of like what Aklo does.
Yes.
Aklo is a great example. Yeah, Aklo would be to me like the premier example. Yeah. You know, the most compelling thing I've ever seen on this note is like, so Aklo obviously, and then I think there's something to be said potentially for like, for example, like FD or like things like that. Like you know, Mango was experimenting for a while. I mean, Mango even tried Scorpion Master at one point on FD, which of course is Mango's Mario, and that like to me can work, but the only thing about it is like for every instance of somebody like Amsa or somebody like Akla, let's say, there's also the fact that it feels like, for example, the Foxes right now are on the other side of things, as an example, doing a lot better in those matchups. Like, you know, it feels like there are more question marks around matchups than ever before, right? Zane's been losing to Cody, and Mango and Cody have started winning on FD. And so I almost feel like I would want to say yes, because like there are examples of people doing this. But then on the flip side, you know, everyone's also pushing their solo mains so hard right now that I feel like, you know, it's such a murky time to answer this question. Like I really don't know. What do y'all think?
What's up, Soonsay? What are you thinking, man?
Oh no, I'm just thinking like the kind of like what Toph's saying. It's the same energy as far as if you want to pursue a low tier or a mid tier. I don't know if dual maining is going to be like, I feel like I'd sooner see some crazy solo Roy main really like upsetting people than I would like a Falco Roy main, you know, like I don't think we'd see it that much. And like, I don't necessarily, just like maybe even using Amsa as reference as someone who has like hard committed for the last however many years to just Yoshi. Like, I think that's what it took to bring that character to the level it's at. I think if you started seeing like, let's say Aklo's got a Link or maybe more picks like that, where someone who's really good picks up a secondary, I think you just run into the issue where someone would spend a couple weeks watching some VODs of their Link gameplay or their Mario gameplay, and those characters at the level that those people are playing them at are a lot more solvable. It's not like they have a really deep vetted history of tricks that they've got, like Amsa, who's got just so many years of tried and true experience. Maybe like way down the road, I just don't know if I'm going to see it in the immediate future with how people are pushing, like Toph said, their solo characters.
My concern, to put my couple 2 cents into it is, if you're playing a low tier or a mid tier with a high or top tier character, I've seen a lot of people do that and they just become a high tier character main. Because it's like you lose a game and it's like, well, who do I want to go here? Do I want to counterpick myself, or do I want to, take do I want to Marth FD someone, right? And you eventually, I think a lot of people give into that. And that's fair. And so I think, if you go the other way a little bit, like if you have something unconventional, sometimes like Aklo's Link or whatever, you might see it a little more. And I also think there's something to be said for, Soonsay's talked a little bit about, the reinforcement you can get. I think if you do play a mid or low tier, I think a lot of people want to gas you up for that one. I mean, some people will hate on it, but I think a lot of people will gas you up for it. And be like, yeah, this is sick. I love that you're doing it. And so that can encourage, a lot of people in that way. A character that I can just kind of shout out to kind of bridge the gap here a little bit. I've been hearing, I see a little bit from DK players, online tourneys occasionally. I know that they have a Discord where they lab and things like that. And DK is like a decent enough character, and like, Rishi will pull out the DK and sometimes like either snag a game or two, and in the past I think he's done even more than that if I remember correctly. But the point is that DK is like a good enough character where you could do something like that with. And so there might be more of that. I think people especially are very curious about these mid tiers and low tiers that maybe could benefit a lot from a lot of labbing. I mean, Dr. Mario is a character where if you could find more ways to land his back air and get people, he'd be a lot better, for example, right? So if you can find setups for that, that would be really good. And that just comes down to a matter of like, how much work do you want to put in? Do you want to put in that top tier main type of work? Or, do you want to just put all that, or you just want to, use what everyone else has done? And so I think as we get bigger and bigger, we'll see more of that. But do I think there will be, to like a high tier, low tier character player? Probably not so much.
Okay. Yeah. I was just curious, just in the sense of like kind of seeing how modern Smash players compared with Melee. So I was just curious to know if that comes up in a sense.
I think the thing about Melee in contrast with Smash Ultimate, because like I played Smash Ultimate, and I think that like with Smash Ultimate, some of these tougher matchups that like, let's say lower tier characters have, or honestly even a lot of the high tiers, I feel like matchups can be a little bit more linear in that game. Like they feel more like, okay, this option exists that this character can do, or like your kill confirm or whatever that you need, like doesn't work in this matchup, so you might consider it a counter pick. Whereas in Melee, like I feel like there's more dynamism in that sense, and like you can kind of often circumvent bad matchups by like, let's say using some techniques that no one's really used before or something like that. Like there's like, I don't know, I guess an example of this would be, okay, let's take like Roy, Jigglypuff, and Melee, which is a pretty horrific matchup. But then on the flip side, Roy is this wonky, like, instant kill with the first of the up B or whatever that you can get off of throws, as it turns out, if you mix their DI up. And so, like, we saw, no one had seen this done at a high level before, but, like, when Zane was playing Roy, during the Don't Test Me era, Zane was actually getting setups into the up B on Hungry Box. And it was like, oh, shit, like, this is, like, and it's DI dependent, and you kind of have to, like, you kind of have to outplay them to get it. It's not very free, but it's the kind of thing that like, oh, this kind of throws a little wrench in the matchup. And I feel like there's a lot more of that in Melee, and there's more ways to push like little subtleties. Like there's ways to find weaknesses, I guess, that an opponent might have because of, DI just being greater and I would say universal movement options just in general. Like there are more universal advanced techniques that are available to all characters. There's crouch canceling, for example. Whereas in all, there's less universal techniques. Things are more character specific. And I feel like that's why most of the time people just either solo main or like, yeah, if they're going to do the dual main thing, it's like, it's more specific. It might be for a stage or something like that. And it is interesting. You mentioned dual mating. I know the question was more about lower tier characters, but I do still think there's room. The pendulum kind of swings every couple years as to what the consensus seems to be in the Melee community of like, is dual mating ultimately better at a high level or not? Because I remember in like the 2015 timeframe when, for example, you had PP, who was a premier example with Marth and Falco, and then you had Mewtwo King with Marth and Sheik and a little bit of Fox, and then you had like Mango with the Spaceys, and you had even and then Armada was Peach mostly, but then there was the Fox, right? So there was a period a couple years ago where it felt like most of the top players were dual mating, and for the radio melees of the time or whatever podcasts were happening at the time, everyone was basically talking about, the highest level players, they all dual main, and that's what sets them apart. And because they dual main, they're able to conserve some stamina, in tournaments or whatever, because they're not having to, if they feel like they're, they can mix it up and stay a little bit more fresh in terms of whatever. There were all these things that people would say about why dual mating is ultimately better. And now everyone at the top level solo mating. And now people are saying, well, really solo mating, you really need to really dedicate all your effort into one character because melee is so hard, blah, blah, blah. And there's a million things you could say to push one side of it or the other. And I'm not really super duper ultimately convinced that there's a right answer or wrong answer. We've seen both solo mating and dual mating be very much in vogue. Yeah, so I don't know. I think that if I was a rising top player, if I had aspirations to be a top player, I would take all of the conventional wisdom with a grain of salt, because I really do think there's no real wrong way to do it.
Right.
No,
I that totally makes sense. Like, just kind of hearing your guys' thought on it, just from from the highest level, and you guys having all the experience in it, so totally makes sense.
I saw this guy Bluezaft when I was commentating. Bluezaft actually has been around forever. Bluezaft is like an 06 player or earlier. You remember Bluezaft, PP, probably from Smash Bros. And stuff. But I was commentating a Bluezaft game this weekend at the off season, and I was like, oh my goodness, this guy's still around. And so Bluezaft plays Puff and Marth. And goes Puff for, goes Marth for Spaceys, and then goes Puff, screw Puff Fox. That's pretty, that can be a hard matchup, but Bluezaft is going Puff for Sheik, for example. And everyone talks about how that could be a pretty good dual main combination, but no one's really done it. And I was kind of thinking, like, yeah, this is pretty compelling. I see how this is effective. So, I think there's a lot of unexplored opportunities there that someone just has to do. I don't know. But yeah, that's how I feel about it, Tarzan. Thank you for the question, and if there's any shout-outs you want to do, feel free to do them now.
Shout-outs to NorCal community Melee. I personally haven't been out to a tournament yet. I really want to at some point. The second thing is I want to shout you guys out again for getting me into Smash Brothers at a very young age, and you guys actually got me into another competitive esport. I'm in competitive Tetris, so. Shout out to you guys for doing that for me. So I appreciate y'all having me on.
Yeah, no worries.
Absolutely.
Hope you have a good rest of your day, gamer.
You too.
See ya.
All right, thank you to Tarzan for the question. Hope Tarzan says hi if I ever see him at a NorCal local one of these days. But it's time to get our next caller on, and I think it is Neptune.
Neptune,
what is
what's up?
Welcome to the program, Neptune. What you got for us today? Where are you calling in from?
Hello. I am calling in from South Florida, like always.
Hell
and
yeah.
hmm and my question is for Soonsay specifically. It's brought up a couple times during Big House on how much you've improved since playing against Amsa in GOML earlier this year. A lot of people brought it up and such. So I'm wondering, what were the ways in which you've learned and improved since then, whether on a fundamental or general level, mentally, or with certain matchups?
Okay, I'll get my John out of the way first of all. I went to GOML on a red-eye flight, and I played AMSA on like maybe the worst sleep or lack of sleep I've ever had in my life. So I just want to say that probably getting a much better sleep helped my chances alone just to play against AMSA at Big House versus GOML. Trying to play Melee when you are not trying to do anything when you have no sleep is just the worst. But as far as like improvements leading into Big House coming from GOML, it's kind of just the same as always. But I guess the main big difference is that before, and this ties into like the effort the effort stuff, but I think there was a lot of like the perception of putting in a lot of effort and hoping that's going to get results. But what was I going to say? The whole thing for me was just showing up. Like I know that people like kind of talk about, you got to go to everything and really care about it and just, really show up and want to win, like have this desire to win and like try to win, or like, I don't know, people phrase it all sorts of different ways. For me, mentally, the biggest thing was like not having any of that expectation on board. I still put in the same amount of prep. Yeah, I clocked in, clocked out. I practiced my tech skill. I watched VODs. I watched lots of stuff. But it might not sound like it, but like before the GOML set, I have a lot of Yoshi experience. I've played a lot of Yoshi in my time so far. And it just so happened that a lot of factors out of game, I think, set me up. I had an awesome breakfast at Big House. I had a great sleep. I drank my orange juice. I had my water. I had an amazing hour-and-a-half warm-up with a great Yoshi player from Ontario. I like all those stars kind of aligned for me to do well. So I wish I had more of a Cinderella story to tell you of just like how I just grinded and made it all work. But I can't sell short how important it is to get all those out of game factors right as well. People talk like about getting bad sleeps and having a bad day and 10 a.m. pools or whatever. But I don't think I don't know. I mean, jokes aside, that stuff makes a huge difference. So yes, I still did all my stuff. I did all my VOD review. I've always spent time doing VOD review, and I've spent a lot of time obviously playing Melee to stay fresh, make sure my hands can do what I want them to do, assuming my brain will let them do the smart stuff. But that is, that's pretty much it. I would honestly give it like an 80-20 of out of game factors to like how much I actually changed between GOML and Big House.
Yeah, and
that's how it goes though a lot of the time.
And what I really like about what you've been saying is I think it ties into conversations we have on here a lot. I think there is this kind of consciousness change that is slowly but surely coming into Melee about how we've got to take better care of ourselves physically, mentally, all that stuff, and how vastly important it is to consider that we're a human playing Melee and not just Melee players. And so I love that, and I absolutely support that, but I also want to make sure for the hyper nerds out there that don't care about any of the stuff you just said and are going to ignore it, unfortunately. What were some in-game things just to do that? What were some in-game things that you still learned, even though yes, I understand about the sleep and everything. Believe me, I totally get it. I feel you. But what are some things that could have that you did learn and you did improve in game between those times?
Yeah, fair point. No, it wasn't just the sleep, of course. A big thing for playing against AMSA is that or really any high level Melee is that it becomes less about getting what you want and more about giving them less of what they want. At least I find, like, if I'm playing good Melee, and I mean, you hear a lot of people, it kind of gets distilled down to don't get hit or, stop trying to hit them so much. But for me and specifically playing into AMSA or any low/mid tiers, is that oftentimes they kind of suck at creating opportunities. And usually it's just like brain dead spacey mode, feeding them openings. And that not to throw all the spacey brethren under the bus, but that's sometimes how it feels. You just get totally opened up for not being the smartest about your approaches. Like, you're playing the better character, so why aren't you winning? But in game, I would say, like, if I really had to go, I was way more conscious of playing around AMS's like shield drop spacings, like how he's going to go for shield drop nairs. You'll see it in a lot of those games. I was going for like really weird single hit up airs, like just trying to catch him coming out of shield at a time he wasn't maybe expecting me to put an aerial there, but I wasn't challenging him on platform in any other way. In fact, even his shield, I was just leaving him alone. A lot of what I was doing when I played against him was reading roles. And I've always done that versus Yoshi, but trying to put him in position to read a lot of roles. And everybody loves a good role read, so it was awesome for the crowd to get into it. But those types of things were like a major difference between GOML and there. I didn't respect his spacing at GOML one bit. I was just like, I'm going to fox him. I'm going to hit him with drills. I'm going to just like punish him. Whereas coming into the Big House set, I spent a lot of time warming up and being really conscious about just how far that double jump nair mix-up can go positionally, and just trying to maintain a really, really obnoxious spacing, so that he would never be able to just like be sure that a Nair was going to connect. It was always a guess for him. And yeah, if he wins the mix up, like I happen to approach at that particular timing mix up, and he gets me, it's cool. I'm not going to be tilted about that. And I know he will have earned it. I just did not want to give anything to him on a silver platter, and so I tried to play that spacing. It's like, I don't know, if you think of like, let's say a battlefield size stage is like roughly chopped up into 4 quarters, you're at least, half a stage length away from him at any given moment, just to make sure that you're not in range of like some mix up that he's going to get a big open up off of. So that was the big difference. If you watch the Big House games, I was dash dancing a lot, and I was staying outside of that range a lot and trying to mix up when I was going to be in that range.
I heard a really great tip from Drug Fox in a lesson that I did a couple months ago about the Fox Peach matchup, which is, obviously it's a little bit different than Yoshi, but there are obviously a lot of similarities. As we know, Yoshi is, after all, just a better Peach, according to Log. So,
PPMD is.
I'm so happy to. I'm so glad we're hearing that again.
Happy, yeah, but okay. Obviously, there's similar characters. They don't have the mobility that like Fox has. So you're the one that gets to set that pace, and you get to pick those spacings a lot more than they do. And what Drug Fox basically said to me is he was watching me fight this dude because we were studying some VOD, and he was like, this is going okay, but like if you had to fight Peach as Fox on a stage that was so let's use the quadrant example that Soonsay brought up. 1/4 the size of Battlefield. So it's like imagine maybe just a side platform, like literally just one little tiny platform, and you're fighting Peach. Who do you think wins that matchup? And I was like, well, shit, it's probably Peach. Peach probably just wins the matchup. Like she always gets to be exactly where she wants. And he was like, well, the way you fight Peach, you're always running in and you're always taking engagements in ways that they are happy to. And so that's basically what you're doing. You're fighting Peach in a quadrant of Battlefield. And so you're playing a losing matchup. Like you're doing about as good as you could be, but you could make this so much easier for yourself if you backed off every now and then and really played the full stage. And I'd never heard it put to me that way before. And I think this is very similar, or basically the same thing to what Soonsay's saying right now. And there's definitely a lot of matchups where this sort of thing applies in one direction or the other, But this is what they mean. I kind of think of this almost, with spacing. To me, there's almost like a micro element of spacing, which is like literally, are you spacing around like, okay, Peach is a dash attack or Martha's dash attack or something? Are you spacing around that move? Like, what move are you actually playing around? But then there's also the macro element of spacing, which is literally where are you literally positioning? Not looking for any individual move, but what is your game plan with regards to where you're at on the stage most of the time before you even get into individual moves. And that's something I hadn't really ever thought about too much before, at least not in my own gameplay. So it's cool to hear this from Soonsay with regards to the Yoshi matchup, because I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it's a huge misconception that people hear like their best characters, Marth, Fox, Falco, Puff, I guess, whatever, all those like top 7 or 8 characters, they win the matchup, and people are like, oh, cool. That means that they win it from anywhere. They just get to play however they want, and they just win. And it's like, no, you don't. You sometimes have to play a little bit like a wiener if you want to win the matchup.
Yeah,
you think the character's supposed to, or I say have to, but you know what I mean. If someone's doing really good stuff and playing their character how they're supposed to, we'll say supposed to in air quotes, then if you want Fox to really thrive under those conditions, then sometimes you got to play a 3/4 distance away. Sometimes you got to play a lot closer and try, like, I don't know, with Falco, you're never gonna get anywhere all the way across the stage, so you kind of have to be in a bit of a danger zone versus that character. So it's when people hear that like that character is great and they should just win the matchup, I don't think anybody ever takes the time to put it, even like you said, like Drug Fox put it, that you are playing it like you want to lose, like you're playing it in a way that the character loses. Like it's not like nobody said it's impossible to lose as the character, and you are proving that. You have to play in a way that the character wins to win, and the amazing part of your character is that they can. Just if you choose not to, then fine. The character doesn't look very good, but otherwise they can.
Yeah, makes perfect sense to me. And it really, I think it's the kind of thing that when it comes to matchups like Yoshi, that people probably still, haven't completely mapped out because I think that people are less. I ultimately still think people are a little bit less prepared for Mamsa than they ultimately probably will become. Now that he will probably be going to just a lot of tournaments, and people are going to be thinking about him a lot because he's just winning stuff. But yeah,
the amount of anti-AMSA science I got from every Fox main I know after that set was like mind-boggling. And I thought I played it pretty good. Like I thought I played pretty good, at least at Big House. But then I got a whole Bible from different people if I put it all together of just like, you can dash attack Yoshi at the ledge when he's doing the egg, and you can also do this and you can also do that. I was like, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know. So next time I play him, hopefully I'll be able to bring more.
I think Mango even said, like, after he won over Cody went up to him and was just like, you should do more drill against Yoshi before he went to fight Amsa in Grand. So
yeah, I feel like the dark horse here, or not dark horse, like we'll say the contrarian opinion, and not to get shot for this, but I thought that Mango played it not very well and like kind of tried to mango Amsa a little bit, and and like in a world where Cody makes it to Grands, I'm pretty sure Cody wins Grands.
Cody, they play very differently. I mean, I even just to echo this, I even said this on commentary. Like, I once asked Amsa. This is a little anecdote that I said on commentary. I once asked Amsa around Genesis time earlier in the year. I was like, because we were talking about Moki, and we're talking about how Moki's really good against really good against Yoshi. And I asked Amsa, out of curiosity, who is somebody that you think is really good but is bad against Yoshi? And he thought for a little bit, and he was like, Mango. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Because, I mean, all the things you just said. Like, Mango's predictable coming out of the egg lay. Mango he's not always ready for all the tech traps. There's offensive things that he kind of gives Amsa for free, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think he was trying to tap into, like, what Mango does sometimes, right? Where he just gets that crazy everything, and everything just seems to be going his way. And that's awesome when it happens. But I think Amsa, like, was the epitome of, like, theory crafted science, decimating, put Fox in a blender playstyle that, like, I don't think you can just, like, oppress someone maybe with the energy that Mango was bringing to the set and, like, some of the choices he was making. So I think Mango needed a bit more science behind him, we'll say. Some more Fox science to make sure that he really shuts Amsa off next time.
It makes sense to me. I mean, that's always the kind of player he's been.
Yeah. Since you guys are all talking about, like, it's important to not be, like, too aggressive. Like, you can be aggressive, and it does work out a lot of times, especially for Mango. But you can't be too aggressive, especially around Yoshi, because of, double jump armor and parrying and all that.
Yeah, I would say it's a combination of, like, if you switch, and I mean, I'll end it on this, I guess, just for the Yoshi talk, but just because I don't want to, I could talk about it forever, but Mango will pick Fox, but then still go for Nair and not drill, and I think that says it all. It's like the whole reason you're not playing Falco here is so that you don't get your down air parried, pretty much. Like, let's just be real, so that you don't get the one, like, single hit move parried. And so if you're not going to use the tool as excessively as you should in that matchup to make sure Amsa can't parry, no matter how good he is, you take that off the table, then you're going to run into the roadblocks that Mango did. And it's honestly insane he brought it as close as he did, considering how well Amsa was playing and how much, like, not Yoshi tech. Like, I'm scared for Amsa if Mango, like, brings in a lot more of that science, because Mango's obviously proven he can beat everybody and actually has an argument for being the best in the world right now. So if he just cleans up that matchup, I'm kind of scared for it. If he combines what he can do creatively and aggressively with a bit more of, like, the Cody science labbed out playstyle, it's going to be a bit scary for Amsa. I really think so.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Good answers, good discussion, good question. Thank you so much for calling in, Neptune. Any shout outs for us on your way out today?
Not really, no. I mean, I guess shouts to me for almost finishing this rough draft, so...
Hey, good luck with
Best
that.
of luck with that.
Good luck.
Best of luck with that.
All right.
Yeah, it was nice talking with y'all. See ya.
Take care.
Have a good one.
See you, Neptune. Well, I hope they get it. Hope they get it done. Definitely been there. Yep, been there. Guess I'll call into Radio Melee instead of writing my rough draft. Hey, well, we got time for at least one more caller.
more.
Welcome to the program, Calcium. Calcium's good for you. Where are you calling in from?
I just moved to Portland area.
Which one?
Well, actually moved to St. Helens, which is like 30 minutes north of Portland. But yeah,
Mm,
yeah, I moved here
which
from
one?
Georgia. So, which
Cool.
what?
Which
Which
state?
Portland?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Portland, Oregon.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I figured, but I thought I'd ask.
Fair enough. Calcium, what's your question for us today, gamer?
Yeah, the topic of cheating has captivated the chess world for weeks after world champion Magnus Carlsen lost to Hans Niemann over the board. Do you see any potential threats to the integrity of Melee online or in person now or in the future? And I can give some background on that if needed.
Yeah, what would it be for Melee? So the biggest to me, and I really do want to make a YouTube video about it, but the biggest to me cheating scandal that Melee has ever had, obviously, was Super Pichu, right? Super Pichu was the biggest scandal Melee has ever seen. But Super Pichu's pretty hard, I think, to pull off at anything larger than a local scale. So for people who don't know about the Super Pichu incident, basically someone had a very specific console where if you plugged into port 4 on this memory card and you picked a certain color of Pichu, then it hyper buffed the character and Pichu's Nair got bigger. Pichu's Nair got to where it would beat Marth Fordair and a bunch of other buffs, and the character became top tier Giga Broken. And I think this person went on so far as to get some wins over some top 100 players, or at least PR players. I know 4% had a loss. Who's a good Jigglypuff player. That happened, but I think that basically the way this person did it was they had to say things like, "Oh, I really want to study my tournament sets and get better. So can we play on my recording setup over there in the corner?" That's just not going to work at a major because you can't play every tournament set that you have on your setup. Eventually, they're going to put you on stream. You're going to get exposed. So, I guess at this point, to me, it's like it would be a controller thing, right? Like, what do you guys think? I feel like the way it would work is someone just says fuck it and puts a macro in their box, and we would never know because box players already don't miss fucking multi-shines. So they just got a multi-shine button. It's like, well, this is like every other box player.
I have kind of a weird answer for this one on the box debate. Is that it's like it's kind of the answer I gave earlier, where it's like when we were talking about boxes. Imagine a world where someone has a double shine macro or a triple shine macro or some shit. They just hold the button down and it just keeps shining. Fine. In a weird world, someone would also have to be good enough still and reaction time to know, like, yes, they get the consistency of the shine, but they'd still also have to like know when it was going to connect, know when it wasn't going to connect, input it into other stuff, and then make like I'm not saying that I think it would be fine for the game. God, no. Right. I'm just saying that, like, when people talk about macros, I'm like, Melee's so analog and like the outcomes are so varied, even among like similar things hitting, that I don't know if it would present the same issue that people are acting about. Like, I don't think some dope player who's now got his quad shine macro or quad shine grab macro necessarily just instantly like shits on the competition. I think that would come with its own unique challenges, being able to even leverage macros that well. Like, I think it would almost be more productive if they had like a smash bot that if they were holding a button down, it would just play for them for a bit. Like, that's more the angle that I could see happening. Because if you had like, that's more where I see it.
Wow. Like a literal engine.
Well, yeah, like I don't see, it would be pretty hard to cover up because you'd be having to push some buttons in a very you would get called out on stream almost instantly for something like that too, though. Like, if you're like, imagine every like drummer you've ever seen and it's out of sync with the audio track and you're like, that guy's not even drumming or something. It's like that would happen immediately times 10. And think about all the other gaming where it's like, hey, I saw your inputs, I'm calling you out for cheating. That happens in the speedrunning communities, that happens everywhere. I just don't know if anybody would get away with it. To be honest, the cheating discussion is more around like whether boxes, not that I ever want to talk about box legality, and I'm sure everybody's beating it to death, but the argument would just be about the legality of those in the first place, if they are already too strong enough to be considered an advantage enough that they're unfair, or you could categorize cheating. Already. I mean, I don't want to sidebar it too much. My short answer is I don't think that there's going to be much of an integrity problem, because by the time anybody gets to the top level of Melee, they'd have to be playing on stream where any obvious BS. Even you get caught on Slippy with like Slippy replays. People have put out like, hey, this guy's a fraud. Look at the inputs. You can see he's doing inhuman SDI. I just don't know if I would see it ever causing like a top level cheating scandal that way. I don't know. PP thoughts? I feel like I don't know.
No, I mean, I think that's fair. I've heard. I think there are some more challenges with online tournaments as opposed to in-person ones. Particularly if you're not using Facecam, for example, right? But there are also times where you could, I think we move more in the direction of not having mid-set coaching right now, but you could have someone just in voice chat coaching you if you're on an online set in a Discord call or something like that. So there are other things you can have codes enabled in your Slippy and that there. So you can see when you're actionable or not, which maybe doesn't make the biggest difference, but there might be other things I've heard about that could be an issue. And so that's one thing. And so it seems like online events seem like they have that extra thing to me. And I've heard hearsay. I have nothing confirmed, but I've heard hearsay that some of that happens, but I don't know to what extent. For in-person things, obviously you don't really have that so much. I mean, I guess people could be texting you stuff and you could be like checking your notes, right? But you're actually looking at text messages and getting something from someone, and there's that.
Yeah.
But I think what more of the concern is for people, from my understanding, is having certain lines of code put into our special controllers, whether they're boxes, goom waves, fobs, whatever they are. And these aren't necessarily macros, but they're things that make quadrants larger to allow you to do certain things better, or they I forget all the specifics off the top of my head. I know that there were a lot of those types of things that are out there, and they're not necessarily press button win game things, but they are things where, let's say you've got two, top 10 players, and maybe they go game 5 a lot. Maybe that's something that gives you an edge, fairly repeatedly against this person. That's enough to give you a win often enough, right? So I agree with what you're saying, that you would need to be good enough to use it, and that would be my concern, is if you're good enough, then you could take that extra leverage and push that farther. And so, and when you're playing for, more money, there, granted, we don't have a lot of money, but if you're playing for, more money, then that would be something to be concerned about. Again, I don't have all the specifics, unfortunately, just because I don't want to think about controllers anymore. And when I hear about this stuff, I just get sad. So unfortunately, I don't have all the specifics and I can't start this witch hunt. Too bad. But I believe I hear some of it from people that are more informed. And so I have that concern about it.
Yeah, I wonder if that calls for like more of a need for, because I know the Slippy's been brought up as like, why aren't we running it at our events? Like, come on, we could have way higher quality looking events, just as a sidebar. And to the point of like online people like being caught for using like SDI macros or other weird, maybe basic implementations of cheating that are so obvious. But like you said, maybe like someone goes for a ledge dash, and imagine like with their notch, it actually snaps them to a better angle, so they get a longer ledge dash. And it's like, that might be a little harder to catch from the view, from the viewer perspective. You might not notice. You just be like, man, his ledge dashes are on today. So I wonder if that calls for a higher need of scrutiny, at least to have Slippy running properly and have the VODs analyzed after the fact from an input level. So you'd be able to see things like sticks snapping to a notch, or like things that look otherwise inhuman. Because otherwise you won't be able to catch it. And in that case, like you mentioned, that's an example where someone wouldn't need to be good enough to use it even. They just have to be roughly in the direction of their ledge dash notch, and the game or the controller would sort of make it up for them. And make sure they don't go like too low or into the stage kind of thing, and they get a nice long angle. So there's the possibility, but maybe just by accident, Slippy happens to now be out at a time that I think we could audit a lot of those sketchy games, or audit everything just as a best practice and catch it. So yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting debate. I don't think any of the top competitors are, I mean, I guess it's stupid to say, so anybody could do it, but I don't think any of the competitors are like that. Like none of our top representatives, like the love of the game is there, but maybe as years go on and you see a lot of new faces and a lot of people coming up that maybe don't have the same regard or respect for competitors and stuff, they maybe start trying to leverage stuff like that. So it is something to keep a lookout for. I think Slippy will help catch it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel in a way. It's like what you said with the shine macro thing, for example. Like, who would do it that would be good enough to actually get results? Because like I think when we actually care about cheating scandals, it needs to be, at the top level of the game for it to threaten the intent. Like as the question is worded, it doesn't really threaten the integrity of melee competition unless it's happening at the top level of play. And for it to happen at the top level of play, someone who's probably already pretty damn good would need to pull it off. And so it's like, and then it's just a question of like, well, who would go through the trouble to do that? Does melee really have, even from the perspective of like, do you get enough notoriety or money or fame or what have you from cheating that would make it worth your while, especially when weighed against the risk of getting caught? And I think you're so much more likely to get caught that I really just don't think anyone would really pull anything. And I also do just think ultimately, I don't think fighting games, and in particular, I don't think Smash is really that. It's not an easy game to cheat in. It's not like, when you consider wall hacks and FPSs or aimbots, those are very logical ways to cheat. If you wanted to imagine cheating in a video game, those are probably the first sorts of cheats you think of. Whereas, we had the Jason Riot thing a couple weeks ago, the Guilty Gear player who people were accusing of having a macro for his, his false Roman cancels. And that got proven to be the guy did a stream with a hand cam and disproved that.
Badass, by the way. Super badass. That is so badass. Really, he just whips it out and does frame perfect inputs like it's, oh man.
Yeah, he just did his practice routine. It was just fucking crushing it like 90% of the time. I was like, oh my God. So yeah, it's like a weird genre to cheat in. Like it's hard to imagine. I don't know. There's just types of games where cheating is logical or makes sense from a gameplay perspective, makes sense. And to me, fighting games are not really one of those games. Yeah, okay. Again, you could imagine it with the input thing, but even then, like an aimbot in a first-person shooter, that will elevate someone from gold elo to able to frag out against the best of the best. But a multi-shine macro, that's not going to make you suddenly win tournaments, unless you're already pretty good. Maybe Soonsay or someone like that, like, you could. Like, that would be, Soonsay could probably take that and, like, that would give you the but then also you're hitting so many freaking JC shines in your top 8, and it's like, wow, this guy's really going for this crazy technique, and he's like extending his combos in this really, really demanding way and never messing it up. And then someone looks into it and you immediately got. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's just so hard to imagine a scenario where it actually screws everything over. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's the.
Yeah. Sorry, no,
you go ahead.
You
if
go.
You want to say something?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, yeah. I mean, like, yeah, it definitely seemed like a difficult, game to cheat in. Plus, there's definitely a lower motive than, say, something with like chess, maybe that has large, $1 million prize pools, and
Right.
also the very low marginal gains. I guess we're talking about you can actually get.
Yeah. That's how I feel anyway. That's how I feel.
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting discussion though.
Yeah, thanks for having it with us. And any shout outs for us on your way out today, Calcium?
Oh yeah, for sure. Shout outs to Max or Cosmofo and who got me into Melee, and our friend Connor, and shout outs to Fat Goku and Portland Melee. Like I said, I just moved here and I went to a local, and it was great to see a thriving and welcoming scene. And hope maybe we'll play some chess sometime.
That'd be cool. That would be super cool.
All right.
Take care, gamer.
Thank you so much for your call. All right. Yeah, it's an interesting question. Someone asked me about this recently. I was actually talking to one of the chess pro guys, and they were asking me, is that like a thing? Like, you guys ever have to worry about cheating in Melee? And I was like, no, not really. I don't even know what that would look like. It's just it's just weird to imagine. I don't know.
I don't know. I just couldn't see myself like even if like, because I know we're running on the assumption that you were cheating at the top level, and that's what would tarnish the integrity of the game or damage it. But like even at a weekly level, it's like you would be that piece of shit scamming people out of $35 weekly. Like, I don't know. I just it's like I just don't see that being something that lasts very long in any local scene, even. And like, well, I don't know. Maybe how badly, like you said, your reputation, you would be obliterated. You would be the guy who cheated, and it was like indefensible. It's not like you cheated to make, the money to pay for your family's medical bills or something. You cheated for $20 a week to screw your local scene over. Like, you are the bottom feeder in this situation. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah. I feel like you would, the risk reward there is so skewed that it's like, it's you. Even if you did it for a whole year and made like $1,000, you would be so obliterated everywhere for trying that, like to the point that people would be pretty pissed off. I don't know. I just don't see that ever going well. And the thing is, with the Super Pichu thing, he wasn't in my community, and everybody in the Melee community heard about that. Everybody was like playing at that time. So it's like, it doesn't even have to happen on a big scale to be blown up and scare people away from even considering trying it. So yeah, there's a lot of deterrence in place, I guess.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I feel like, even if you want to talk about it wasn't really cheating, but I remember years and years and years ago, there was that guy. People, you must remember this story. Remember that guy Cheese? He was like a brawl player, and Cheese would, to my knowledge, would like try to basically grind people out of tournament wins or into having tournament wins. Like, I remember there was this thing with Cheese and Mutaking where, like, he would try to get you to pause. Like, he'd do something that would get you to pause, and then he'd be like, "Oh, you paused. At TO, this guy paused. You gotta lose a stop." Like, he would grind, and that's not cheating per se. It's more like exploiting the rules. And there was this thing with Cheese and Music, and this was like 20-9. But and I still remember that. And I'm still kind of like, wow, screw that guy. Like what did you really get? Like, you got like the TO gave you some stocks maybe, or maybe not. Like, is that really worth it? Like, was that person remembered as one of the best brawl players? Like, no, like Mutaking was,
Dude, I wish that was the meta. Zane making Mango flinch on stage or some shit. Like, just that's a stock. Come on.
I know, dude. I know. It's so like,
that is so funny that is like 2009 so brawl beef.
Exactly. Yeah. I got to look back into like the exact circumstance, but this was something that came up a couple times with this player, and it was really funny. And I remember every time I'd read about it on Smashboards, I was like, what is going on with this guy? This guy's crazy. Anyway, you vaguely remember what I'm talking about, PP? Like,
little bit,
right? I don't fully remember the story either, but I remember it was like something really, that was like the gist of it. But anyway, yeah, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. Like, you're never going to be known as one of the great. To me, if there was a monetary payoff, or if there was a tangible, practical payoff with Melee, it's less about the money from winning one event, and it's more about, the friends you make along the way. But the notoriety and the the community says, wow, this guy's really good, and then maybe you take that and you become a streamer or something, right? Like, but if you're that guy that everyone fucking hates because you cheated, then you're never gonna have that. So it's not worth it,
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. Well, anyway, PP, we've just about gotten to the end of the program, and that was our last caller. Thank you, everyone, for calling in. But should we ask Soonsay for his own community voice, or did you have any other fascinating questions or anything you wanted to talk with him about?
I'm ready to hear Soonsay's community voice.
Okay, so just as Amsa last week did pose a question to our YouTube audience and basically ask them, hey, what do you want to ask? Amsa, what do you want to ask to the world? All the Smash players out there, they have to answer it. So you could ask anything you want to the Golden Guardians YouTube audience that tunes in every week. It could be gameplay related. It could be silly. It could be serious. But you got to ask them some question, and they're going to provide a hot take in response.
I have kind of a dorky question, because I don't know if it's just my own personal journey through Melee that has like caused me to feel this way. But I think the community is nicer than it used to be, like a lot nicer. And I'm not talking like 2010 slurs community and, oh, look, we don't say those things anymore. I mean, like at a fundamental level, do you feel that players are more respectful of each other, regardless, like beyond like, puff players and like the stuff that was really stigmatized, even in like fairly recent memory, like pre-COVID, and maybe as an add-on to that, how big of a part do you think COVID and not being able to, like, maybe just how online played out with Slippy and people's appreciation for having Slippy and how much they realized they missed LAN played a role in that? Because I will bias it. I don't know if it'll help people answer it, but my answer is like a resounding yes. Even among people that used to beef a ton, like I don't know, maybe like Mango HBox, where it was like really kind of mean spirited at times. There's like a lot of respect among competitors that I think wasn't always there. Oh, even as I've gotten better at the game and seen other people get good at the game, or even people who are like just weekly O2ers who show up every week and they are just like there to support the game and getting better. I think the community's gotten way nicer as a whole, and maybe it's just a byproduct of everybody getting a little older because the community age has probably shifted up on average. But I do think that everybody is a lot more respectful, and I think that there's a lot more going on that, like, even on days like for myself where I lose to someone and I'm like, man, that sucks. I really don't think like I should lose to them on a given day. I don't really say that stuff anymore. I'm like, you know what? They played great and I hope they have a great tournament. Moving on. And I think I've seen that attitude with a lot more people, and it's kind of inspired me to change the way I was thinking about it too, and being less of a complainer and a whiner outside of the game. So long-winded, but we'll just say that. Do we think the community is nicer and more respectful?
That's a really interesting question. I'll probably share some of my anecdotes next week. I agree with you, but only because I've been around for so long. I remember what things used to be like. But I'm really curious what the perspective is of everybody out there. I know a lot of the listeners tuning in are probably, well, I know some of you at least are new enough that maybe you don't really have a sense of, enough time having passed to really make that measure. But I am really interested in hearing what the people have to say. Well, thank you, Soonsay, for that. Thank you for coming on this week. This was a dope episode. And yeah, we'll be seeing more of you. I'll be seeing you at Smash Summit, if nothing else. I guess at the Ludwig Invitational as well this weekend. I think you're going to be there.
Yeah, I will be there this weekend, and okay. I'm going to try. Well, Summit's obviously happening, and then I think it'll be main stage and Panda Cup finale. I'm going to try and beat all of it.
Yeah.
So
good luck.
Okay. Best of luck at everything.
Appreciate it. I will. I feel bad. I just wanted to say as a one little closing note. There was someone in the waiting room. I think they had just missed the ticket to come and ask their question. They just asked if they're from Alberta, and that's why I figured I'd say that's where I'm from. And they messaged me. They just DM'd me. So they cheated their question, and I'm sorry. I just wanted to say a quick shout out to a lot of the Alberta players. I know it's not like a ton of people that people would have known about, but like Quaff, like I mentioned earlier, fantastic player. Anjo, who's been playing for a long time, fantastic player as well. There's a lot of really cool players on the come up. Alberta's never really had some sheiks, so there's a lot of, I don't know. It's never really been considered a boiling pot of talent for a region, especially among Canada. It's always been like Ontario, maybe some Quebec, maybe even some BC. So I'm really excited to see if maybe me doing well at Big House. I don't know. I don't want to take that much credit, but I'm hoping to see that maybe that's a wake-up call and just a reminder that even if you're in like a region that's not necessarily on the world stage, that you can in fact do it. And I guess even PP would be a good reference to that coming from North Carolina, right? So I don't know. Shout outs to everybody in Alberta also, and a quick shout out to everybody supporting this past week. Like I said, it's been a bit of a whirlwind of a week, and I seriously am like, cannot thank everybody enough for the support, and being able to play cool Melee in front of you guys has just meant the world to me. So I appreciate it.
What a beautiful sentiment, and what a beautiful note to end on. Thank you so much, Soonsay, for giving hope to so many, giving great gameplay.
I do not think I give that much, but it was worth sharing. So I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Thank you all out there. We will see you next week. This is Radio Melee, signing out.